One. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Daincast. This time, we've got another game from our good friend SivPax. He is playing the blue Protoss in the bottom right-hand corner of Golden Wall LE. And his opponent, known only as Aaron, spelled Aaron. He is going to be the red Terran in the bottom left-hand corner of this kind of crazy map. I have to say, in all my years of playing StarCraft, this is one of the strangest ladder maps I have ever seen. For those of you who somehow don't know what this map is, it's called Golden Wall because it's got a gigantic wall that goes through the middle of it, and the only breaks in it are these gold mineral patches that you can set a base up on either side of these, which gives you an option of which side you want to build on and which side you want to worry about being harassed on. Only this side has the Vespene Geyser, so I think this side seems to be the more obvious candidate, but I have seen people take this as a mineral-only expansion as well. And then there are these small mineral patches that can be mined out by one probe. Well, you need two, because you need to get one on each side. If you just need an emergency way to get your army through back here. For example, if a Zerg player takes this gold base, which is very common, you might want to get an adept or two behind these minerals to harass them a little bit. But having a look at this game, this is already getting a little bit weird. Even though he's only on one gas, Aaron is walling off the front of his base, which is an interesting move on this map. I've had this done to me before as well. It can make a lot of confusion for the Protoss player because what this looks like is a one base attack, because you don't know if he's expanding or not, because he can take this base. He's mined this base out. Aaron has mined out these minerals, and he has the option, if he wants to just take this base, which is what he's doing. But as far as SivPax knows, this could be just a one base all in. Now, I'm sure it has crossed SivPax's mind that this could be an expansion. I'm sure it has. But the fact is, until he gets an observer or a hallucinated phoenix, he's really not going to know what's going on here. So it's going to be up to him to continue to scout, because it's really what he doesn't see that's the problem. Yes, he sees these. Yes, he sees a barracks. There's no add-on on this barracks, which I think is an interesting thing to note. That's probably the only bit of scouting information he's going to get, which is going to tell him that at least he's not getting, a huge amount of Reapers or Marines coming at him out of this barracks. So I'm not sure you could get a completely clean read on that this is an expansion just from the lack of an add-on there, but it is more information, and that's always going to be better. So it looks like Aaron is just going to continue on to build a second barracks and a reactor on the first one, while SivPax is no stranger to defending Terran cheeses, so he is going to be making sure he is safe. He knows he doesn't really know what he's dealing with, so he's going to build a shield battery. I really like this move. This is just going to help you stay safe against any kind of frontal pressure. And if you think about the investment overall here that this early supply depot cost the Terran, this kind of equalizes things. You're not putting yourself behind if he's doing this, because the Terran has already invested into the early supply depot, which is going to mean that he had to delay his command center a little bit. So it's still not too bad for SivPax. SivPax looking like he's actually in a really dominant position right now, just through no fault really of Aaron's, other than maybe missing a few workers here and there. SivPax is up 31 workers to 23, so this is obviously looking pretty good. It equalizes with the two orbital commands a little bit. If you actually just look at the mineral income, though, it's about 900, floating around 800 to 900, whereas SivPax is up to nearly 1,300 minerals. So obviously a nice little advantage for him. He should be able to produce a bigger army, and actually he is 10 army supply above his opponent right now, going for a couple of extra gateways. He's got his robo on the way. I like this robo tech as well for dealing with the Terran that you don't really know what's happening. Chrono that observer out as soon as you possibly can, so that you know what you're dealing with, because this is the frustration of playing against a build like this, is you just don't know. So it looks like it's going to be a 2-1-1 style build from Aaron. He's going to be building his reactor and starport here. He's going to swap these over and make two medevacs, and then fly in a whole bunch of Marines, and maybe even this Reaper will get to join in on the action. But SivPax is no slouch. He's going to send this observer. He's going to scout absolutely everything. He's going to see the entire build only moments before the observer tragically lost its robotic life. So SivPax is going to maintain his observer harassment here, sending in yet another observer. Maybe this observer will escape and cause some more frustration for this Terran player. I love this from SivPax, making multiple observers, sending them out on the map. And it looks like SivPax's macro is pretty good as well. It's nearly 5 minutes, and he is on 43 workers with many observers, and he's got a robotics bay down. He's got his extra gases. He's going to be able to start making Colossi. Looking like a really, really solid 2-base macro build from SivPax. He probably wants to be either adding more gates and going all in though, or taking a 3rd base pretty soon. I think he's a little bit unsure what he wants to do based on the build of his opponent. He does know about this expansion now, but Aaron is not really saturating this base all that much. I have to say, a little bit of critical analysis here of Aaron. He has not been making any workers at this base, so he is down by quite a few workers. By 5 minutes, he should be on 40 workers. It is now 5:30, and he is still on 30 workers. So I'm not sure what's going on with Aaron, but the one thing that is going to go in his favor is the fact that these medevacs are going to be flying into SivPax's base, but I think they're only barely going to be spotted by this observer right on that bottom part. So SivPax should be aware of this. He's already got a Colossus and 2 Stalkers in position. This should allow him to defend this. SivPax is taking his 3rd base as well, confident that he knows exactly what's coming, and I can't help but feel that these Marines are going to be melted as soon as they drop, because there is a Colossus that's basically in position, but tragically SivPax is moving his army out. I don't know if he's trying to bait the drop into attacking, but everything is going to get dropped, and it's going to stim into SivPax's mineral line. He pulls everything only a second after it starts, but he's already taken a few probes, considering that he saw the drop coming. Would like to see him clean that up without taking any losses, but overall looking pretty clean for SivPax with a nearly 20 worker lead, warping in many more Stalkers, making another Colossus. He's going to go up to 3 Colossi, which might give him an opportunity to attack his opponent. His Adept has been hanging out at the front of Aaron's base, just trying to see what's going on, making sure he's staying on 2 bases. He's got observers around the map, so he's going to basically know when the move out comes. This might be a little bit annoying to deal with when this tank push comes out, but the fact that SivPax has an observer here is going to mean that he's going to be able to scout it without too much issues. But this 2-1-1 didn't really pack much of a punch because of this kind of blind counter here from SivPax. Going for the Colossi is really going to put a damper in this Marine pressure, and SivPax is comfortably taking his 3rd base. He's saturating it, and it's natural of Aaron is still not saturated. So honestly, I think Aaron's just getting outclassed in the macro department here. SivPax looking really, really strong. Not sure what rank he's at right now, but I think he might just be completely outclassing his opponents at this point. This is kind of what we talk about when we're coaching, is workers and macro are so important. If you manage to get up to a good worker count early on in the game, and then you spend all your money, you're just going to have so much more. And you can kind of see how that is playing out in this game with 67 workers to the 35 of his opponent. He's got 3 Colossus. He's got multiple Stalkers. I can't count. He's got 7 Stalkers. He's got a few sentries. He is going to be able to do a very strong push here. And look what his opponent has. Even though he's on a similar army supply, he's on mostly Marines and a couple of tanks. He is going to siege up this awkward position here. This hasn't been mined out by SivPax, so it's going to be a little bit frustrating to deal with as these Marines elevator into the main. The Colossi are not going to be able to close the distance on these tanks without taking significant damage, but there is an Immortal and some Zealots joining in this fight, and wisely SivPax hold positions on his Colossi to just whittle away at these Marines without taking any damage because they outrange those Marines. The tanks are not actually going to be able to outrange the Colossi before they kill the Marines, so really nice hold position from SivPax. But the 2 medevac drop is going to be floating out and trying to do damage potentially at the 3rd base of SivPax. But since he's got this scouting pylon, this is going to be pretty easy for him to spot. I think he's going to be able to split his army pretty nicely here as long as he plays cautiously and is paying attention to that mini-map. This is why you have this pylon here, so that you can spot things like this, but I don't think SivPax realizes it. This drop is going to go into his 3rd base without really anything in position. He could do a recall, but this is going to mean that this drop here is going to be a little bit more dangerous. So I think SivPax is going to move. He's going to recall his entire army to deal with this double drop, but this is going to create an opportunity for the Terran player to go into the main base, and it looks like he's going to seize that. Going to go right for the mineral line, getting many, many kills. 11 kills, 13 kills, going up to so many kills here. Really, really nice little tactic from the Terran player. I don't know if he's going to be able to get the upgrades before the Protoss army chases him down, but with a blink on the 2 medevacs, looks like SivPax is going to get a piece of that drop while splitting off the rest of his army to deal with this drop. He is going to clean this up in the main base, and despite all of these nice little tactics from Aaron, he is going to get cleaned up, and there is still a massive worker lead for SivPax. He's still stabilized on 3 bases, and there's no third base even in sight for his opponent Aaron. He only has 2 bases. He's got 5 barracks producing Marines and Marauders, but he doesn't have anything to follow this up with. So it's basically an extended 2 base all in from Aaron, and SivPax has more than enough to deal with the army, and he's got more than enough to continue to reinforce with his economy as well. So it's going to be a continual pressure from Aaron, and the 3 medevacs are going to drop in the main, try and continue to pressure this. Wisely bringing up the tanks here to start to outrange these Colossi. The 2 Zealots are going to melt almost immediately, but the amount of units the Colossus are able to enable here is going to be just, I think, too much for this. Even though they're Marauder heavy composition, the amount of DPS that the Protoss army has, they're now equal on upgrades with the Terran. I think they're going to be able to clean this up just fine. They're only engaging the units that come up on the high ground, realizing that they're not going to be able to do too much. But I don't know why SivPax keeps retreating down here. I think he's a little bit scared of taking damage from this tank, but there's going to be yet another double drop here. But again, Aaron, where is your 3rd base, my friend? You can afford it. You're floating. Well, you're not floating actually, because you're running out of minerals, but you could afford this. You could make a few less Marines and Marauders and build a 3rd base and be able to continue this aggression. While SivPax himself is going up to 4 bases here, he's just going to be able to completely clown on his opponent if he doesn't die within the next minute or 2 here. He's just going to overwhelm him with the sheer power of macro as this main base starts mining out. Even a Warp Prism able to afford in the main base here. Warping and Zealots are going to start killing these SCVs. I don't know if it's even going to matter because he's oversaturated anyway, but definitely an aggressive focus from our Terran player. He is moving out with the last sort of hurrah of units here, but it's going to be completely spotted by this Observer. SivPax knows this is coming. He's been keeping his army in his main base, but there is a double drop on the top side of the map. Going to be spotted once again, unfortunately for him. SivPax with the fantastic pylon placement is going to know exactly where this is coming from, and he's going to be able to warp in to defend it if he has noticed, but that is a very big if. So far this game, he's got great pylon placement, but he hasn't been reacting to the vision preemptively. He's been kind of dealing with things as they happen, but it's still going to be enough here because he's got such an overwhelming force here. Going to engage this army at a nice angle to clean up everything up on the high ground. I don't see anything happening with this army here because the Terran is too busy dealing with the warp in his main base. There's just so many Zealots here trading once again, and the thing is that SivPax can afford to trade all day long with these Zealots. He's got so much money to throw at the Terran. Terran has to decide where he wants to spend his resources very carefully. There's no trades in the world for him, I think, that would allow this game to start snowballing in his way. He's got only 16 workers. He's got nearly half the army supply of his opponent, and his production has Zealots on top of it. He's stemming these Marines and Marauders, trying to clean it up, but his main attack has been completely cleaned up. He's only got some units on the low ground. The double drop is being chased away by a huge force of... Actually, it's SivPax's nearly entire army. It's going to be a GG from Aaron and a victory for our hero, SivPax.